just a few more seconds here.
All right.
And we're live on Instagram. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Got Lions, Red Wings, and Pistons to talk about, but our top story right now, as of this week, the Michigan Wolverines football team got a notice from the NCAA about alleged violations during the COVID-19 recruitment dead period during signing day. So those were two university officials telling ESPN about this. According to sources, Wolverines head coach Jim Harbaugh faces a level 1 violation for allegedly not cooperating with or misleading NCAA investigators about the alleged violations. And Michigan also faces 4 level 2 violations, which are considered less serious. Michigan in August self-imposed a 3-game suspension for Harbaugh. Yeah, we already know that. 2 3-game suspensions. The self-imposed penalties, as of right now, enacted to soften the impact of NCAA punishment, came shortly after the NCAA's infractions committee did not approve a negotiated resolution involving Harbaugh that would have resulted in a 4-game suspension. The NCAA also in August took the unusual step of issuing a statement during an ongoing investigation about the severity of the alleged violations involving Michigan. So, man, it's just like something keeps on happening with this university and its football team, Ed.
It appears that way on the surface, but honestly, it's just shifty and sneaky timing by the NCAA. This is nothing more than honestly just a regurgitation of the Burgergate issue. That's just what the main crux of this story happens to be. It's nothing new, no new violations, nothing to do with Connor Stallions or the sign scandal or any of that. This is something to do with the recruit that Harbaugh was hosting, and apparently the NCAA thought that Harbaugh was trying to mislead them on for some reason whatsoever. For what reason, I don't know. You have to ask them. But honestly, that's just the reasoning why you're hearing about this. You have to remember, though, this was something that earlier on, that after Harbaugh's first suspension had been already been served, there was still discussion of this issue bleeding into next season. I think this is just one of those outcomes that they had been talking about.
Yeah. So that was our top story. Just the same old stuff as Michigan.
But it is quite timing though that the NCAA tries to do this though, as not only is Michigan trying to get ready for their bowl game against Alabama for the Rose Bowl, but they're still at the meantime trying to host recruits, trying to get their recruiting class going on for next season. And the timing of the NCAA to do this, again, doing this on signing day, while Michigan also was trying to getting news that they were getting a linebacker from the transfer portal. His name is Jayshawn Barham. He'll be coming over from Maryland. He is one of their best players, in fact, if not their best starting linebacker. And in this 2 seasons so far for the Terps, he had got 96 tackles, 7 sacks, and an interception. Michigan fans should know that interception because it came against the Wolverines. So he still has about 2 years of eligibility left. He's the first pickup of the portal season, so to speak, and he still has some connections here because he was teammates and friends from high school with Blake Corum. They both went to the same Virginia area high school, both DMV boys. So not surprised to hear that he went to Maryland. So now when you add in a player of that caliber coming over, mind you, though, this is the first player that Michigan's getting from the transfer portal. I would expect them to be getting more players that suits their needs, suits what they're looking for, primarily on the offensive line, from the running back position. as well as potentially any pickup from the QB spot. I know there was talk about I think it was the freshman from UCLA. He may be potentially be on the move. But that's something to pay attention to. But if not, Michigan could still keep their head up with the fact that what they did do a good job with signing 12 offensive players for their recruitment class for next year. They did get that done for National Signing Day. Notable names I already mentioned. These are names I mentioned months ago, but it bears worth repeating here. Jaden Davis and Jordan Marshall, quarterback and running back, respectively.
All right. Michigan, right now, taking a look at their spread, right now, Michigan is actually checked that favored -2
So
against
it is
Alabama.
-2. So it's gone back up to 2.
Yeah.
See, I would keep my eye on that because next week we'll be previewing the game next week since it'll be our last episode before
of the year 2023.
Yeah, but also the last episode before the game takes place. So we'll be able to give you more full in-depth analysis as to why the spread is where it's at and why Michigan is a favorite, a slight favorite. Barely a favorite, but still a favorite nonetheless in this upcoming game against Alabama.
Anyhow, moving on, the Lions steamrolled the Denver Broncos 42-17 last Saturday night on NFL Network, SC on NFL Network. Jared Goff, 5 touchdown passes. Sam Laporta, a touchdown reception hat trick. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 touchdowns, including a catch and a rush. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, the other touchdown on that flipping leap into the end zone to make sure nobody meets him at the goal line. And the Lions defense, pass rush doing business as usual. Even the secondary got in a few pass defenses. And that's what I'd love to see as well. Extra attention to detail. Hey, it's all coming together. They just got to keep all that up, everything, when they head to Minnesota. But seriously, just true domination, and that offensive offside call gave the Lions a lucky break, to be honest. But really, they just dominated this whole game, Ed.
The Lions may have gotten a couple of breaks from especially from the officiating side of things. But let's be honest, the way that the Lions came to this game, from a prepared standpoint, from a mental standpoint, and most especially from a disciplined standpoint, that was in addition to the fact that they had a completely healthy offensive line for one of the few times for this whole season. That played as much of a factor into this outcome more than anything. But the fact that the Lions were very disciplined, because remember, coming into this game last week, they had a very poor showing of that practice against Chicago. Too many penalties, too many turnovers, and too many key mistakes by the defense in certain moments. Here, you saw that discipline being on full display in multiple phases. I could see a couple instances where Aiden Hutchinson was patient. He didn't bite on the fake. He kept control, contained on the outside edge against Russell Wilson, particularly in RPO and those run option plays. Good job by Aiden on that. And speaking of Aiden, I thought that Aaron Glenn had come up with a wrinkle of sorts. Now, this may be something that he has done before, but this is like one of the very few times or first times that I've seen today, or at least in this game, being so effective. But what I was referring to is the fact that Aaron Glenn would take Hutchinson, he would drop him back in coverage, and to make up for that, he will bring an extra rusher, bring an extra blitzer from someone in the secondary, from the safety spot, coming in and as late disguised pressure, like a Melifonwu, for example, or bringing someone in from bringing a corner in from the edge to create that extra pressure, so that Russell Wilson couldn't get off to make the plays the way that he'd been doing in recent weeks. So good eye, good credit, and I think that should be good kudos should be given to Aaron Glenn on making that adjustment. I know fans have been having their their own, I guess I would say, bipolar feelings on how they feel about Aaron Glenn from week in and week out. But frankly, in my opinion, while there have been problems on this defense side of football, you cannot deny the fact that Aaron Glenn is trying. He is doing something, and I think between the effort that the team's shown, well, not to mention the fact that their tone, the aggressive tone that I think, frankly, we've been waiting to see for them show and display for quite a while now. That was what was missing from this game, from recent games. It showed up in strides in this game, so that was great to see. Knowing the fact that also you still have some key players on the defensive side of the football that are still not 100% yet back from injury, but they are coming back soon. Guys like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, for example, he's going to be looking to return before the end of the year. I'm still not quite certain about Aleem McNeil or James Houston, but that is the plan at the moment. Looks to be that they should be back as well. That's good to know, good to see from the defensive side of football. Now, from the offense side of things, Ben Johnson, I know we've been hearing his name come up in recent reports about, hey, this is his asking price. This is what he wants if he's going to be considered as a head coach candidate. But still, first and foremost, you have to focus on what you're doing here in the here and now with this season with the Lions. And with this game, he kept that focus on full display, as well as the offense in general. Like I mentioned before, with the offensive line having their full setup, their full starters in. I'm talking Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Glasgow, and Sewell. That starting five all together, that unit together at once. This was only the fifth time you saw that specific lineup of the offensive linemen for this season. And guess what? The Lions are now 5-0 in those games. Their offense has scored an average of 38, almost 40 points per game behind that specific lineup. And it shows not just in the offense, how it establishes the run game, how the Lions have been averaging 100, almost 174 yards on the ground through that, because of that as a result. But also, most importantly, the protection that it gives Jared Goff allows him to perform much better as he would have been under normal regular pressure. But because, like I said, Goff having a passer rating of QB rating of 121 or so behind that offensive line, exactly. So if this offensive line were to stay healthy, get this type of consistent production week in and week out now for the last few weeks of this season heading into the playoffs, it could make the Lions a potential threat in that case. But it still comes down to the fact that you got to protect the football. And Jared Goff, what did you see from Jared Goff in this game? 5 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. That's what you want to see from your quarterback in a position like this when you're getting ready to try to clinch a division and get yourself set up for the playoffs. So kudos to Goff on that. I'm loving the fact that not only that he was able to get his usual targets involved, get Amon-Ra St. Brown back involved, because St. Brown had to have been pissed. He had the way he was playing, the way he was running his routes, he was playing angry, because you knew he had to have been very disappointed with himself as to how that game in Chicago went. He was very quiet, one of his lowest output games, if not his lowest offensive production game of the season, if not of his career. And frankly, he responded in this game in a mighty way. Like you mentioned, Taylor, with that flip, that highlight of a play for a touchdown. He had over 100 yards, I believe, or so on the game again. This goes into the fact that he's had now back-to-back seasons of 1,000 yards through the air, receiving yards. And speaking of that, the Lions are on the verge of having 2 rookies giving you over 1,000 yards of production. In the case of Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he is approaching 1,000 yards rushing on the ground, if not approaching 1,000 yards combined yards of scrimmage through the air in terms of on the ground and through his receiving yards. And also, like I mentioned, with Sam Laporta, he's also approaching 1,000 yards receiving for his rookie year, in addition to the fact of the touchdowns that he scored, like you mentioned, Taylor, with the hat trick that he got in this game. So another testament to how people were trying to criticize and shit all over Brad Holmes for, you didn't draft for this. Why'd you make these moves? You need to go for need and value. No, here's your need and value right up your alley, okay? Because of the moves that we've made with these players specifically, we're in the spot that we're in right now. We've got 10 wins, first place, 3-game lead with 3 games to go, and we're fighting for a potential top 3, if not dare I say top 2 seed in the NFC. So I dare say draft, what Brad Holmes has been doing with his drafting decision so far, it's been working. Just let him keep working.
Yeah, some fans just aren't as smart as we are when it comes to Brad Holmes, the way he's done his work.
I wouldn't say that. It's just not paying quite enough attention to the important details.
I know. Yeah,
I mean,
that's almost the same thing, but not quite.
Don't get me wrong. There's still some things to work out. They still got to do a little bit better in the third quarter. Despite their improvements for this week, they still did get outscored 10-7 in the third quarter, and that's one area of improvement they got to make in terms of point differentials, production, whatever the case may be, especially turnover margin. That third quarter has been a boogeyman of sorts for them all season. So you hope they get that sorted out before we get to playoffs.
Yeah, I gotta work on exercising that demon and play 60 minutes.
Yeah, but still, they were still effective though. You mean they were 6 of 6 in the red zone.
They played 50 minutes.
Trust me. 40 minutes. It would have been enough seeing on how they played against Denver. That was the worst they've made that Denver defense look since maybe that 70-point game against the Dolphins. Because up to this point, that Denver defense had been balling. I've been mentioning the fact of the turnover turnover margin, how many takeaways they've been getting. We didn't see that in this game, and for good reason. So that was a real key between taking care of the ball and getting back to establishing what this Lions team is and needs to be offensively, with how physical and how impactful what they are with their running game, and how important it is to have that factor established on the ground. It played dividends into them executing what they need to do on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the main thing. If the Lions keep all that up, not only will they beat Minnesota twice, they may even have a shot at beating the Cowboys in the regular season in Week 17 at AT&T Stadium.
I'll say this. If they beat the Cowboys, we can go back to having those discussions of, can this team be a potential Super Bowl threat? Because that level of excitement was in the air.
I would say very close.
You gotta be honest though with the fans though. That excitement was in the air after the Kansas City game, after the Green Bay game, so to speak, and how the team had been performing leading up to that stretch in November where things were inconsistent. If they can beat the Cowboys, who have been one of the best performing teams in the NFC outside of, say, San Fran and Philly, if they go into Dallas this late in the year and get a statement win of that kind, it definitely sends a message to the rest of the conference.
Yeah, the rest of the NFC. But let's take a look at the NFC North first before we take a look at the NFC number 1 seed watch first. The Lions, of course, they're 10-4. The Vikings are 7-7 because they blew a 14-0 lead and a 14-point lead in Cincinnati and lost 27-24 in overtime to the Bengals. The Green Bay Packers, they lost as well to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by 2 scores at Lambeau Field. The Buccaneers improved to 7-7. The Packers are 6-8. And of course, the Bears lose to the much better Cleveland Browns. And the Bears fall to 5-9. Now, as I promised 20 seconds ago, as the number 1 seed watch, the 49ers improved to 11-3. Still got to get by them. But the Eagles, man, they've lost 3 straight. They dropped to 10-4. But now, the Cowboys, they improved to 10-4. So it's a 3-way tie in terms of record. But the Cowboys get the number 2 seed. The Eagles drop all the way to the 5th seed, like you mentioned. The Lions still at seed number 3.
Now the thing is, pay attention to that NFC North. I'm not NFC North. That NFC East race between the Cowboys and the Eagles, because if both teams were to win out, just based on record and tiebreaker, the Eagles would still win the division because of the head-to-head that they had against the Cowboys, I believe. So that paid that attention to that, especially with that game next week looming between the Cowboys and the Lions, because that's a game that could potentially not only decide the NFC East, but also potentially help settle some seeding as well. Because if the Lions were to win that game, like I mentioned, they would have themselves, in addition to this one, a lock steady grip on that potential number 2 seed. And it's important to know that as well, because what the Rams just won. As we're live on the air coming to you with this, the Rams, they just beat the Saints. It just went final on Thursday Night Football. Score was 30-22 for the Rams. And why am I mentioning that now? Because guess what? The Rams now move into that second wild card spot. Essentially, that's the only spot that's left to clinch other than the NFC South spot. Everything else in the NFC is essentially settled in terms of playoff spots. The Lions are still waiting to clinch that spot for the division. But like I said, seeding is going to be important, because not only determines whether or not you get an extra home playoff game or not, but also determines who do you face in that first round. And frankly, like I said before, that scenario that just can't keep escaping out of the back of my head. Now I'm starting to see more people talk about it. The possibility of seeing the Lions versus the Rams in the playoffs, especially in the first round, the wild card round, is looking more and more like a distinct possibility.
Yeah, the homecoming of Matthew Stafford, possibly.
Yeah, Stafford's return, his first game in Detroit, and it would be in that scenario.
That would be one hell of a hot ticket for Lions.
I mean,
fans.
you want to talk about?
They remember him.
You want to talk about the NFL script? My goodness.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people mention. The script. NFL.
It's more of a jokey reference. It's nothing to be taken seriously.
That's what
it's nothing to be taken seriously, but
satire.
yeah, exactly. It's extremely for satirical purposes. But still, knowing of this potential storyline and all the narratives that would surround it leading up to that game and for the game itself, it would be a lot of attention, just to say the least.
Yeah. Now, before we get into the game in Minnesota, like we mentioned, Ben Johnson is asking for $15 million per year, and before that, I read Marshall Mathers Eminem tweet on a post on X. Please don't go, Ben Johnson. But really, can the Lions pay Ben Johnson that much? That's the question.
I doubt it. I mean, well, first and foremost, I think it's just a matter to a test of what NFL team is going to be willing to pay that much to Ben Johnson. It's not so much whether or not can the Lions afford that, is which team is going to be willing to pay that to Ben Johnson, because that could be an issue of Johnson saying, hey, you know what? I may be wanting to go, but just in case I may feel like wanting to stay. I'm going to potentially put this price out there, because we'll see what team will be willing to make that leap, to make that plunge. But again, it's too far early now, in my opinion, to be trying making any type of prediction or hypothetical guess as to, is this going to be what's going to happen? Because we still got to see
who's going to replace him,
or who's going to replace him. Yeah, we still got to see how this season's going to play out first, and we don't even know what potential team could come forward as that favorite. Could it be a Carolina? Maybe. Could it be an LA Chargers? Maybe. Maybe the Raiders. We don't know. We just don't know yet. We still got to watch everything still play out first.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a very important season for the Lions. They still need Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator. He's still going
to be here. He'll still be here for the throughout the duration of this season. That won't be a problem. It's just a matter of the unknown of what's going to happen for next season and beyond. That's the unknown. That's true. That's the unknown variable.
That definitely has to be a fair notion.
Yeah.
So the Lions, 3-point favorites when they head to US Bank Stadium at kickoff against the Minnesota Vikings. Usual time and channel and day of the week, Sunday at 1 on Fox. So Justin Jefferson has been returning not one but two injuries, and Mullins has been taking over for Josh Dobbs at quarterback.
Yeah, that speaks to, I think, the will and tenacity of the Vikings that despite of the issues, the multiple issues, the carousel that they've gone through at quarterback, starting with Kirk Cousins getting injured, blowing his Achilles, were done for the season. And then with Josh Dobbs, with his up and down roller coaster struggles, good one week, bad the next, up and down, too much inconsistency. So now it's gotten to a point where the Vikings are now relying on Nick Mullins of all people to be that starting cornerback. And I'll say this: he did look decent in terms of doing what he had to do, but it's still Nick Mullins. Come on now. Just like I would have been saying the same thing if Josh Dobbs was still starting. It's just that level of fear or that we're just having that level of concern, I should say, about whether or not what this player or what this quarterback can do. It's just not as quite as bothersome as you would have been if Cousins had still been there. So that's still a testament to their tenacity, to their character as a team, and also to their defense. And frankly, with Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator, he deserves great kudos and great credit as well for keeping this team in the contention that window that they've had so far. And let's not forget, though, Brian Flores, he's got some history with Jared Goff himself. Let's not forget, he was the defensive coordinator in New England when the Pats matched up with the Rams in that Super Bowl a few years back. So he knows all very well, I would assume, about Goff's tendencies, his strengths, his weaknesses, how to neutralize it, and especially how to apply and bring that pressure. And the fact that they are getting Jordan Hicks back from injury with one of their key defensive players should be something to pay attention to, because as we know, Goff under pressure is far more different than Goff not under pressure. So that'll be a true test, I would say, especially in terms of environment and everything, because they know the Vikings, their backs are against the wall. This is pretty much everything. This is this is everything for them, because they got to win out not just for the division, but they got to win out just for a potential playoff spot. Especially now with the fact that what I just mentioned to you, the Rams just won. So now the pressure is going to be back on Minnesota to try to keep pace, to try to see if they can get hold on to that other wild card spot themselves. So they're going to be looking to give everything and then some, give their best shot at the line. So it's imperative for Detroit to have as good a start as possible to this game. You cannot have a shaky start the way you did against Green Bay or against Chicago or even against all the way back against Baltimore, because this is a road game. It's going to be a hostile environment, and you can't have a bad start in that type of circumstances and scenario, because it could lead to a hole where you're not be able to climb yourselves out of.
Exactly.
And also, let's not forget the fact
Start
that
off the way you did against the Saints.
Yeah, I mean that would be imperative to see. I'm not expecting them to start off with a 21-0 lead, but
no,
but
not
something
quite.
will be something. Yeah, but you need to feel some type of confidence in how your offense can handle that type of pressure on the road. Because let's not forget rather, the Lions have not won in Minnesota since 2016. Okay, I believe that was the year when the Lions had completed that comeback, and then Stafford had found Golden Tate with that crazy breakaway touchdown walk off in overtime with the crazy end zone celebration. That's how long it's been since the Lions last won in Minnesota. And I think it would be very full circle in a way for against the team that Dan Campbell got his first win against as a head coach for Detroit, against the team that gave you problems, gave you that heartbreaking loss last year, and was one of those losses that kept you out of the playoffs. The team that also went on to win the NFC North last year. This is their defending title, the chance to clinch your first division title in 30 years, your first ever NFC North title against that team in their place. Again, feels very full circle in a way. And if you're the Lions, you just got to maintain that focus, keep control of that discipline, and
Stay on your toes.
Yes, but again, it goes back to making sure your offensive line does what they're supposed to do, um, and take care of the football. Do those things, and despite of how good the Vikings defense may be, I don't think it's going to be enough to handle what you guys bring to the table,
Yeah,
especially on the offensive side of things.
start playing better third quarters as well.
True, but guess what? If they have a great first half, I don't think it's going to be too concerning to see what they do in the third quarter, as long as they don't blow a lead.
Yeah, that's the key word. Yeah, don't blow a lead. That's the key. They almost blew their lead in New Orleans, but they still won. Quite honestly, but just barely. So prediction.
Well, the Lions are -3. This could be a potential trick to see whether or not the Vikings are going to give them one last shot. I'm saying the Lions are going to get it done. I think the Lions have just too much momentum, too much riding on on their side of things, and they're going to be in the mindset that, hey, we have a job, we have a goal to accomplish. Let's get this done immediately. So I think they're going to do that. They're going to keep their cool, maintain composure, and they're going to do just enough to where they will win this game, and I believe they will cover. I think the final score is going to reach out Detroit 28, Minnesota 20. That's going to be my call for the final score prediction.
Oh, by 8. Okay. I'm going to go Lions 27 and the Vikings 20. I'll go 7, but to be fair,
we're both saying they're going to win and they're going to cover, and not only that, Merry Christmas. That's your first division title since 1993.
Yeah, still has to be earned, but yes. All right. So the Red Wings, they've lost 7 of their last 8 games. They're 15, 13, and 4, 30, still at 34 points. 5th place in the Not So Atlantic Division, and fifth place in the Eastern Conference wild card, because other teams like the Washington Capitals and the New Jersey Devils have jumped the Wings.
Yep.
We're all aware that the Wings have had goaltending issues, but what that could also mean is they should have to fire their goaltenders coach and get a new one, because nothing is working for Husso, Billy Husso, James Reimer, or Alex Lyon. Even injured or reserve or not, all those goaltenders are just not getting it done. And now the defense is not helping them out in their own zone either.
And now the offense is sputtering. And granted, we are seeing some glimpses of, I guess you could say, Patrick Kane trying to get his footing, so to speak. He had his
got a goal in Winnipeg.
Yeah, he had a goal in Winnipeg. He had an assist also to the Brinket the other night as well. So there's that element trying to show its process, show its development. But still, the offense is sputtering. The last 4 games, they've scored no more than 3 goals. Period.
Yeah, and the last 2 games, they dug themselves in 2 holes. 4-0 at home against the Anaheim Ducks.
Yep.
And then 4-1, and then 5-2 to the Winnipeg Jets. 5-2 was indeed the final score. The Red Wings almost came back against the Ducks, but they didn't even bother, or probably just failed miserably to come back against the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, like you said, Taylor, digging yourself in the early hole. I mean, when you mention those type of deficits, you got to put some point of emphasis of blame on the goaltending for that at some point. I understand the goaltending is not the full reason why they've been having these struggles, but it's one big reason. It's an important reason.
Definitely a big reason.
Okay, I've seen Husso giving up far too many soft goals to think, oh, okay, that's not a problem. No, it definitely is a problem.
It is, yes. Yeah, it definitely is. Husso has been garbage the whole season. I know he had one good game against the Carolina Hurricanes, but still, other than that,
major disappointment. He's been majorly disappointed this season. There's no denying that. So you have to wonder if it's going to take him missing him getting not getting the start for a couple of games, bringing up someone else from Grand Rapids. I don't know what he got to do. Do you have to make a deal at the deadline? Potentially,
Yeah,
maybe,
that can
but
happen too.
but you got to figure something out because this cannot continue because it's going to be one big crux as to why you don't move on to the next level or take that next step in development for this year because what you weren't able to hold on to leads or you're building like you mentioned Taylor building digging yourself in early holes and early deficits because your goaltending can't stop a damn thing.
Exactly. And yeah, their offense is sputtering, and the goaltend and the Red Wings are
Goaltending.
just allowing goaltending and defense combined
Yep.
in their own zone, just letting in too many goals in the back of their net. You gotta
It's too frequent.
wonder
Too frequent.
The head coach of the Red Wings, Derek Lalonde, has to take at least some accountability as well, but he has to hold the entire team accountable as well.
Yeah. You got to. I understand some of these games you had to do without Dylan Larkin. I get that, but that's no excuse either.
He
Some
just recently returned. So did
exactly. He just
JT Comfort.
exactly. So now you're getting your full pieces back. There should be no excuse
And
as
they're
to
still
why.
falling behind in big deficits after that.
Exactly, which I'm trying to say. There's no excuse as to why you shouldn't be having uh, these starts to these kind of games like this.
Yeah, you don't have any injury reports left. That's it. And you're still being lazy out there on the ice or
Now,
just
if you got to make
inconsistent.
if you got to make lineup shifts, if you got to put certain people in certain spots and lines, so be it. But you got to have something has to be done of some variety.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, there's got to be some accountability, but want to know what's worse in the city of Detroit? The
Oh yeah.
Pistons.
Speaking of accountability,
2-26. They've lost 25 straight. They, yeah, this Monty Williams, Troy Weaver, Tom Gores, all that stuff, all the same old Jazz over and over again. Pistons lost to the Jazz 119-111.
and this is worse. This seems to be the worst loss yet because you got to remember that the Jazz were did not have many people starting. They what like lost four starters, four players that they sat for this game. So this was one of the best opportunities you could have gotten for a long while now because I can't even think or know the next time you're going to be favored in a position like this. Because now you're looking at a what potentially setting the record for the most all-time consecutive losses. Well, that's one big record potentially looming. And now what? Are you going to try to set the all-time record for either most losses or fewest wins or worst winning percentage? Whichever the case may be, it's a whole new level of ineptitude. And frankly, I don't know if no, I don't. It's not an if. It's a matter of the way the way Monty Williams was hired and the way his system was supposed to be versus the roster you actually put together. That's an indictment on you. That's an indictment on Troy Weaver for sure, and it's definitely an indictment on Monty Williams to an extent of not trying to make the proper adjustments to work around. Okay, this is not a 3-point shooting team, but what can this team do well? If you can't find that out, then frankly, then maybe you shouldn't be here as a coach.
Yeah.
We're not giving you all that money just for no reason.
The only positive is James Wiseman blocking shots earlier tonight, but
Oh, that's
that
but guess what? They don't mean shit because they're still turning over the ball. 11 more turnovers tonight versus only 3 for Utah.
just three. Wow, wow,
Yeah,
that's lopsided.
exactly.
Yeah, the Pistons can't do shit consistently. That can't do diddly squat.
It's embarrassing, and
Jesus Christ.
it's embarrassing, and it starts at the top.
With,
Period.
with the owner Tom Gores, who is still
Yes.
in Beverly Hills, California. Yeah, yeah, he would rather live there than operate the Pistons franchise in downtown Detroit at Little Caesars Arena.
Mm. I mean,
That's exactly how Tom Gores feels, and Pistons fans are chanting "Sell the team."
yeah, they are because they've had enough now. Frankly, if it has to take something like this becoming such a national embarrassment to where either the league steps in or something takes, whatever the case may be, it is. Something has to shake this whole franchise to reality. Hey, this is not working. We gotta do something to fix this.
Yeah, and Cade Cunningham says we can still turn this thing around. Hey, Cade, you got to prove it. And right now,
I
you're not.
listen. If you mean turn it around to try and get to say what 20, 25 wins, sure, but it's not going to happen by itself anytime soon because you can't use any other excuse that you try to use from earlier seasons. You can't now. This whole team, this whole situation, this whole franchise is just bad all around. This is just the culmination of that process, unfortunately.
There is no process. The whole franchise is just entirely dead. It can't
It's
operate in
sputtering. It's sputtering.
any area.
Sputtering in reverse instead of going forward.
Yeah, it's gone straight to hell. It's completely. I mean, if you can't move the team, then just shut it down. If you can't improve it, what's the point?
Again, it would take amazing circumstances because let's not forget, you know, as bad of a job that Donald Sterling did with the Clippers, he still held on to the team until his racism was exposed. So it's going to take some type of large variable or outside scandal. And again, when I think the phone records bill from the jail cells in Detroit, that's not going to be a big enough scandal, quote unquote, to try to usurp power.
Worse yet, prison
Tom
cells.
Boris. Exactly, from prison cells. It's not. That's not going to be the type of issue that gets Boris out of power. So keep dreaming on that and try to focus more on what the hell can you do with your front office. Because frankly, you want to start looking pointing fingers at potentially your general manager. Frankly,
Yeah, and I don't even know if Gores is even paying attention to any of this. That's the truth. I don't think he is, to be honest.
well, it speaks.
That's how dead
It
this
sums up
franchise
everything.
is. Yeah,
It
that's
wouldn't
how
be
dead this.
surprised.
Yeah, that's how dead this franchise is. All right, so that covers everything. So, what all did we learn in this week?
It's simple. We learned that the Pistons are at rock bottom, as rock bottom as you can possibly get. And frankly, we don't know when they can climb themselves out of it. We learned that the Red Wings, frankly, are
Bottomless
still,
pit.
yeah. We've also learned, frankly, that the Red Wings still have some issues to sort out themselves. They're still not quite ready yet as to make that next step, but development is still coming along well in other places. They just have to get certain key issues sorted out. We also learned that, frankly, the NCAA has a hard on at this point for trying to find some type of issue to stick to Michigan or to stick to Harbaugh. Because, frankly, let's just call out the elephant in the room. Because Harbaugh is one of the very few, if not the only one of these coaches out there that wants to call out the NCAA for their system in terms of not sharing profit properly with the players. It's not too much of a surprise to see why we've seen these type of investigations, quote, ramp up, so to speak, against Michigan. So that's what we learned from that aspect. And frankly, we've learned that the Lions have put them frankly, they need to take care of business. We've learned that they're one win away from being division champions. Frankly,
That's the magic number, by
one
the
of their
way.
goals. This is one of their goals that they set themselves up for to have that primary chase for. Dan Campbell had stated, that the goal between him and Brad Holmes was to try to compete for the division in 2023. Well, this is that year. This was that target, and now they're one win away from achieving that goal.
Yep. Yep, that's exactly everything that we've learned this week on the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Follow me on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at DT2 Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube on Ed Smith 313. Business shout-outs go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation, Burke's Waterfront Restaurant in Cadillac for liking our episodes and reels on Instagram, on our Instagram handle at Michigan_truth. Cali Tickets, call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City, where I got my hair cut earlier today, just 7 minutes away from here. Let's Roll With It rolled ice cream in Cadillac. Their flavor of the week is Christmas eggnog. So tempting. Follow them on TikTok at The Food Mafia LLC and on Instagram at The Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream. So many intriguing flavors. You've got to try it. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac. Place your bookings for next summer at 231-884-8195 and like their Facebook page, and United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. Our next episode, again, next Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Until then, well-ish. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips, signing up. But remember, we observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Can you handle the truth? Let's see. Let's see. Stay on the lookout and stay aware, everyone. Hit them with a hind.
Take care, everybody. Merry Christmas to you.
And a Happy New Year as well. Well, I'll save that for next week, but Merry Christmas.